In the neon-soaked corridors of Omega Station, a hub of criminal activity and black market deals, Captain Lila Voss and her crew of misfits prepared for the score of a lifetime. The target was a secure vault belonging to the Valoran Syndicate, an intergalactic cartel notorious for its ruthless enforcement of territory and resources. Rumor had it that the vault contained a relic of immense power, an artifact called the Star Shard, capable of bending space and time. Lila, a former Earthfleet officer turned rogue, had her reasons for this heist. The payout would be astronomical, enough to buy her crew's freedom and erase their records from the galactic database. But there was more to it than money. The Star Shard was rumored to have been stolen from Earth centuries ago, and Lila saw this as a chance to reclaim a piece of humanity's lost heritage. The crew consisted of Drax, a towering, heavily augmented human enforcer with a penchant for destruction, Nyx, a sly and agile hacker who could slice through any security system in seconds, and Sarah, a former medic turned sniper, whose calm demeanor belied a deadly precision. Together, they had pulled off countless jobs, but none as audacious as this. As they infiltrated the vault, alarms blared, and Lila's heart raced. The Valoran Syndicate would be on them in minutes. Nyx bypassed the final security layer, and the massive doors slid open to reveal the glowing Star Shard. The moment Lila touched it, a pulse of energy surged through her, and the artifact's light seemed to recognize her, as if attuned to her very DNA. With the Star Shard secured, the crew made a hasty exit, but the escape was anything but clean. They were ambushed by Valoran enforcers, and a fierce battle ensued. Drax unleashed his fury, taking down foes with brutal efficiency, while Sarah covered their retreat with pinpoint shots. Lila and Nyx made a break for their ship, the Tempest, with the artifact in tow. Just as they were about to lift off, a Valoran warship appeared on the scanners, blocking their path. "We're not going to make it," Nyx muttered, panic creeping into his voice. "We don't have a choice," Lila responded, gripping the controls. "Hang on!" The Tempest roared to life, and with a daring maneuver, Lila evaded the warship, jumping to light speed just as a barrage of plasma fire lit up the space they had occupied moments before. They were free, at least for now. But Lila knew that stealing from the Valoran Syndicate was only the beginning of their troubles. The artifact had marked them, and soon every bounty hunter and law enforcer in the galaxy would be on their tail. As the stars streaked past, Lila glanced at the Star Shard, its glow pulsating in sync with the ship's hum. Something told her that their lives were about to change forever. Word of the heist spread like wildfire through the galaxy's underworld. The Valoran Syndicate, humiliated and enraged, placed a bounty so high on Lila and her crew that even the most loyal allies considered turning on them. Within days, the Tempest became the most wanted ship in the sector, and Lila could feel the weight of every bounty hunter's gaze on her back. The first to come after them was Korgath the Merciless, a hulking alien with a reputation for never missing his mark. His ship, the Blood Raven, was faster and better armed than the Tempest. As the two ships engaged in a deadly game of cat and mouse through the asteroid fields of the Zoran Belt, it quickly became clear that Korgath wasn't interested in taking them alive. "Divert all power to the shields," Lila ordered, as the Tempest shuddered under the impact of Korgath's cannons. Drax manned the turrets, returning fire with everything they had, but the Blood Raven was relentless. "We can't take much more of this," Sarah shouted from her station. The shields were failing, and the hull was starting to buckle under the assault. Lila knew they needed a plan, and fast. "Nyx, can you hack their systems? Get us a window to jump?" Nyx's fingers danced over his console. "I'm working on it, but their firewalls are insane. Just give me a few more seconds." They didn't have seconds. Korgath's next salvo would rip them apart. Lila made a snap decision. "Brace for impact." She veered the Tempest sharply, heading straight for a dense asteroid cluster. "What the hell are you doing?" Drax yelled, gripping his seat. "Trust me," Lila said, her voice calm despite the chaos. The Tempest weaved through the asteroids with hair-raising precision, the massive rocks colliding and breaking apart in their wake. Korgath followed, but his ship was too large to maneuver as nimbly. Just as Lila had hoped, one of the asteroids clipped the Blood Raven's wing, sending it spiraling out of control. "Now, Nyx!" Lila shouted. Got it! Nix slammed his hand down on the console, and the Tempest jumped to light speed, leaving Korgath and his damaged ship behind. As the adrenaline subsided, Lila couldn't help but smile. They had escaped again, but the bounty hunters would keep coming, and with each encounter, their enemies would learn more about their tactics, making it harder to survive the next one. Lila glanced at the star shard, now securely stored in a containment unit. "We need to figure out what this thing really is," she said, "before it gets us all killed." After narrowly escaping Korgath, the crew of the Tempest knew they needed to lie low and figure out their next move. Lila's instincts led them to an obscure part of the galaxy, far from the main trade routes and heavily trafficked star systems. Here, hidden deep within a nebula, was the planet Vedra, a world shrouded in mystery and rumors of ancient technology. As the Tempest descended through the planet's thick atmosphere, the crew was met with a landscape unlike anything they had seen before. Towering mounds of crystalline rock jutted from the ground, glowing with an eerie blue light. The air was thick with static energy, causing their instruments to flicker and malfunction. "This place is giving me the creeps," Drax muttered, scanning the horizon for threats. "Relax, big guy," Nick said, though he was clearly uneasy as well. "We're here for answers, not a fight." Lila led them toward the largest of the spires, where her scans had detected an energy signature similar to that of the star shard. As they approached, the ground beneath them trembled, and the rock's pockets that were filled with an array of mysterious, colorful liquids had suddenly rippled like water. Before they could react, they were enveloped in a blinding light and transported inside one of the structures. When their vision cleared, they found themselves in a vast chamber filled with ancient machinery, humming with power. In the center of the room stood a holographic projection of an alien figure, tall and slender with elongated features. The figure's eyes glowed with a pale blue light as it regarded the intruders. "Welcome, travelers," the projection said in a calm, echoing voice. "You have come seeking knowledge of the star shard." Lila stepped forward, clutching the artifact. "Who are you? And what is this thing?" "I am a remnant of the Vedran civilization," the projection replied. "We were the original creators of the star shard, a device capable of manipulating the very fabric of reality. It was intended to be a tool of peace, but in the wrong hands it could become a weapon of unimaginable destruction." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. "So why did you make it in the first place?" Sarah asked, her hand resting on her sidearm. "The star shard was meant to unify the galaxy," the projection explained, "to bridge the distances between worlds and bring about a new era of cooperation. But our civilization was destroyed before we could realize that dream. The star shard was lost, and now it has fallen into your hands." Lila frowned. "And now everyone in the galaxy wants it." "Indeed," the projection said. "The star shard is a beacon calling out to those who seek power. If you wish to survive, you must learn to harness its energy. But be warned, the more you use it, the more it will attract those who would take it from you." The chamber began to shake, and the hologram flickered. "Our time is short," the projection continued. "The knowledge you seek is here, but it comes at a price. Are you willing to risk everything for the power of the star shard?" Lila hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "We don't have a choice. Show us what we need to know." The hologram's eyes glowed brighter, and beams of light shot from the walls surrounding the crew. As the ancient knowledge of the Vedran civilization flooded their minds, Lila realized that their journey was far from over. The star shard was more than just a relic. It was the key to their survival and their greatest danger. As the knowledge of the Vedran civilization settled into their minds, the crew of the Tempest realized the enormity of what they had uncovered. The star shard was not just a powerful relic. It was a nexus of possibilities, a device capable of reshaping reality itself. But its use came with significant risks. Each activation could draw more attention, destabilize space-time, or even tear apart the fabric of the universe. Back aboard the Tempest, Lila and her crew huddled around the star shard. The information they had gained from Vedra included blueprints for a device that could harness the artifact's power more safely, but they lacked the resources and expertise to build it themselves. They needed help, and there was only one place where they might find it: the Freeport, an independent space station on the edge of the galaxy known for its skilled engineers and neutral stance. However, Freeport had one rule above all: no fugitives. If the bounty on Lila and her crew was discovered, they would be handed over to the highest bidder. Lila knew this was a risk, but she also knew they had no other option. The star shard's energy was becoming unstable, and without the device, it could destroy them all. As they approached Freeport, Lila donned a disguise, and the crew adjusted their ship's transponder codes to avoid detection. The station's bustling markets and workshops were a stark contrast to the bleak reality they faced. Here, people bartered for everything from advanced weaponry to rare alien artifacts, and the hum of commerce masked the underlying tension. The crew split up to gather the parts they needed, but it wasn't long before they attracted the wrong kind of attention. An old acquaintance of Drax's, a bounty hunter named Vero, spotted them in a crowded market. Vero was a lean, sharp-eyed man with a cybernetic arm, and his gaze lingered on Drax a moment too long. "Drax," Vero called out, a sly grin spreading across his face. "Fancy seeing you here. Heard you've got a big payday on your head." Drax's hand drifted to his weapon. "You don't want to do this, Vero. Just walk away." But Vero's grin widened. "Can't do that, friend. Business is business." Before Drax could react, Vero fired a signal flare into the sky, alerting every bounty hunter on the station. Chaos erupted as Lila and the crew raced to finish gathering the parts and make it back to the Tempest. With blasters blazing, they fought their way through the crowded corridors, dodging mercenaries and bounty hunters at every turn. When they finally reached the ship, Nix was already working to install the device they had assembled, connecting it to the star shard. "It's now or never," he shouted as the Tempest's engines roared to life. The station's defenses activated, and a barrage of laser fire filled the space around them as Lila maneuvered the ship through the station's docking bay. Drax and Sarah returned fire, buying them just enough time to make the jump to light speed. As they escaped, Lila activated the device, channeling the star shard's energy. A shimmering bubble of distorted space formed around the Tempest, and in an instant they were gone. Teleported across the galaxy to an unknown location, safe for the moment but far from secure. The Tempest emerged from the jump in an uncharted region of space. The crew's instruments struggled to make sense of their surroundings, and the view outside was disorienting. Star systems twisted and warped, as if reality itself had been reshaped. "I don't like this," Sarah muttered, her eyes scanning the readouts. "Where are we?" "According to the star shard, we're in the void expanse," Lila said, though the name meant little to any of them. It was a place beyond known space, a realm of legends where ancient fleets were said to be lost, and time flowed differently. As they ventured deeper into the expanse, they encountered a massive fleet of derelict ships floating lifeless in the void. Some were ancient, their hulls corroded by millennia in space, while others seemed more recent, their markings still visible. It was an armada frozen in time, a graveyard of forgotten conflicts. The star shard pulsed with energy, and Lila felt a strange connection to the fleet. "These ships, they're not dead," she said, a realization dawning on her. "They're waiting." Before the crew could react, the star shard sent out a signal, and one by one, the dormant ships began to stir. Engines hummed to life, and lights flickered on across the armada. It was as if the fleet had been awakened by the star shard's presence. "This is incredible," Nick said, watching in awe as the ships aligned themselves around the Tempest, following it like a vanguard. "But why are they responding to the star shard?" "The Vadrans must have had some connection to this fleet," Lila speculated. "Maybe they used it as a failsafe, a last line of defense hidden in the expanse." But their awe quickly turned to alarm as the fleet began moving of its own accord, propelling the Tempest towards the heart of the expanse. Lila tried to regain control, but the ship was locked into the fleet's formation, drawn towards an unknown destination. They soon arrived at a colossal structure, half embedded in an asteroid field. It was a Vadran outpost, ancient but still operational, with massive docking bays and powerful energy readings. The fleet docked within the outpost, and the Tempest was pulled into the central chamber. As they disembarked, Lila and her crew were greeted by a holographic AI, a remnant of the Vedran military. "You are the inheritors of the Star Shard," the AI declared. "This fleet is now yours to command, but with great power comes great responsibility." The AI explained that the fleet was designed to protect the galaxy from existential threats, but it had been lost in the void expanse during the collapse of the Vedran civilization. Now, with the Star Shard in their possession, Lila and her crew were bound to that mission. Lila was stunned. The fleet was a formidable force, capable of challenging even the Valoran Syndicate, but it came with an immense burden. "We didn't ask for this," she said, but the AI was unyielding. "The choice is yours," it responded. "You can wield this power to protect, or you can abandon it and leave the galaxy to its fate. But know this, others will come for the Star Shard, and they will not be as merciful." News of the Tempest's disappearance and subsequent reappearance in the void expanse had reached the Valoran Syndicate. Enraged by the theft of the Star Shard and the growing legend of Lila and her crew, the Syndicate marshaled its forces for an all-out assault. Lila, now with an entire armada at her disposal, knew that the Syndicate would not stop until they had the Star Shard, or destroyed it. The crew debated their next move. Some argued for using the fleet to strike at the heart of the Syndicate, while others urged caution, fearing the destructive potential of the Star Shard. The decision was made for them when a massive Valoran battle group emerged from hyperspace surrounding the void expanse. The Syndicate had come in force, with hundreds of warships, led by the fearsome dreadnought Oblivion. The Tempest's sensors blared warnings as the Syndicate's fleet closed in. Lila knew that they were outmatched, even with the Vedran fleet at their side. But retreat was not an option. The Syndicate would pursue them to the ends of the galaxy. "We have to fight," Lila said, her voice resolute. "We'll use the fleet to buy us time, but the Star Shard is our only hope." As the battle erupted, the Vedran fleet engaged the Syndicate with ruthless efficiency. Ancient weaponry, long dormant, unleashed devastating barrages that tore through the Syndicate's ranks. But the Oblivion was a force to be reckoned with, its advanced shields and firepower cutting down the Vedran ships one by one. Lila knew they couldn't hold out much longer. She activated the Star Shard, focusing its energy through the device they had built. The artifact pulsed with power, and space's very atmosphere around the Tempest began to warp and bend. With a final desperate effort, Lila directed the Star Shard's energy towards the Oblivion. A massive rift opened in space, and the Syndicate's dreadnought was caught in the pull, dragged into the void along with a dozen of its escort ships. The remaining Syndicate forces, demoralized and leaderless, retreated. But the victory came at a cost. The strain of using the Star Shard had taken its toll on the crew and the ship. The Tempest was badly damaged, and the Vedran fleet was in tatters. Lila could feel the artifact's energy waning, and she knew they had narrowly avoided catastrophe. The crew of the Tempest limped away from the battlefield, but they knew the Syndicate wouldn't be deterred for long. The Star Shard's power was immense, but it was also unstable, and the more they used it, the more they risked tearing the galaxy apart. Lila and her crew had to make a decision. The Syndicate would never stop hunting them, and the Star Shard was too dangerous to keep. They needed to find a way to neutralize it once and for all, but the only place where such a thing might be possible was at the heart of the Vedran outpost, deep within the void expanse. Returning to the outpost, Lila confronted the AI. "There has to be a way to safely destroy the Star Shard, or at least deactivate it. We can't keep running, and we can't let it fall into the wrong hands." The AI considered her words. "There is a failsafe built into the outpost, a self-destruct mechanism that could destroy the Star Shard along with the entire fleet. But activating it would mean sacrificing everything, including your lives." Lila looked at her crew. They had been through so much together, and now they faced an impossible choice, but she knew what had to be done. "We're not going to let the galaxy burn because of us. We'll activate the failsafe." With heavy hearts, the crew set the outpost to self-destruct, giving them just enough time to escape. As they made their way back to the Tempest, the AI offered them one final piece of advice. "Your journey doesn't end here," it said. "The Star Shard is gone, but the knowledge you've gained, the experiences you've shared, Those will stay with you. Use them wisely, and you may yet find peace. The crew boarded the Tempest and took off, watching from a safe distance as the Vadran outpost and the fleet were consumed in a spectacular explosion. The Star Shard was no more, and the galaxy was safe from its power. With the Star Shard destroyed and the Syndicate's grip weakened, Lila and her crew found themselves at a crossroads. The bounty on their heads had been erased, and they were free to choose their own path for the first time in years. The crew exchanged glances, each of them considering what they wanted for the future. Drax cracked a rare smile. "I've had enough of fighting for a while. Maybe we can find a nice, quiet planet to settle down on." Nix shook his head with a grin. "And get bored out of our minds? Nah, there's too much out there to see. But I like the idea of using what we've learned to do some good for once." Sarah nodded in agreement. "We've got the skills, and we know how to survive. Let's make sure no one else has to go through what we did." Lila smiled, feeling a sense of hope she hadn't felt in a long time. "Then it's settled. We'll keep the Tempest flying, but this time, we'll choose our own destiny." With that, the crew set a new course, leaving the past behind and heading toward an uncertain but hopeful future. They were no longer outlaws, no longer fugitives. They were free and ready to carve out a new venture among the stars.